The boy who refused to stop running. What Cristiano Ronaldo taught me about the English language. Hello and welcome back to SERA English. I'm so glad you are here with me today. 14 episodes. I keep saying this number out loud because it still amazes me. 14 times you have chosen to sit with me, to listen, to learn, to grow a little more comfortable with a language that was not the one your mother sang to you when you were small. That is not nothing. That is a quiet, beautiful kind of dedication, and I want you to know that I see it. Today we are going to talk about a man whose name is recognized in more countries by more people in more languages than almost any other human being currently alive. A man who grew up with almost nothing, who was told by people who should have believed in him that he was too small, too thin, too poor to ever make it. And who, through a discipline so extreme it borders on obsession, became one of the greatest athletes the world has ever produced. His name is Cristiano Ronaldo. And today, his story, a story that has nothing to do with the English language on the surface, is going to teach you something essential about how real fluency is actually built. So let us begin. Part 1. Who is Cristiano Ronaldo? Cristiano Ronaldo dos Santos Aveiro was born in February 1985, on the island of Madeira, Portugal. He grew up in a small house in a poor neighborhood called Santo Antonio, in the capital city of Funchal. His family did not have much. His father worked as an equipment manager for a local football club and struggled with alcoholism. His mother worked multiple jobs to keep the family fed. There were nights, by his own account, when there was simply not enough food on the table. As a child, Ronaldo was small for his age, and desperately, relentlessly in love with football. He would play in the streets, on dirt patches, anywhere there was space for a ball to roll. At the age of 10, he joined a local club. By 12, his talent was so obvious that Sporting Lisbon, one of the biggest clubs in Portugal, brought him to the mainland to train, separating him from his family at an age when most children are still tucked in by their parents every night. He was homesick. He was teased for his accent, the islander accent that marked him immediately as different from the mainland boys. He cried, by his own admission, more nights than he could count. But he did not go home. By 16, he had signed his first professional contract. By 18, Manchester United, one of the most famous football clubs in the world, paid millions of pounds to bring him to England. By 23, he had won his first Ballon d'Or, the award given to the best football player in the entire world. And he has gone on to become, by most measures, the most decorated football player in the history of the sport. Multiple Ballon d'Or awards. Hundreds of millions of social media followers. More than any other human being on the planet. Hundreds of millions of dollars earned. Records broken in nearly every league he has ever played in. But here is what I want you to hold on to as we move through today's episode. None of that. Not one trophy, not one record, not one contract, happened by accident. It happened because of a single quality that Cristiano Ronaldo has displayed more consistently than almost any athlete in history. Discipline. And discipline, my friend, is exactly what builds fluency in a language too. Part 2. Our first vocabulary word. Relentless. Let us start with the perfect word to describe Ronaldo's approach to his craft. The word is relentless. Relentless means never stopping, never easing up, never giving yourself permission to slow down, even when you have already achieved a great deal, even when others would say you have earned the right to rest. For example, her relentless preparation before the interview meant she was ready for every question they could possibly ask. Or, Cristiano Ronaldo's relentless training schedule has remained essentially unchanged for over 2 decades, even after he became one of the wealthiest athletes alive. Ronaldo is famous, almost legendary, for his physical discipline. While many top athletes train for 2 or 3 hours a day and rest, Ronaldo has spoken about training sessions that stretch much longer, about ice baths, about strict diets, about going to sleep at precise times to maximize recovery. At an age when most footballers have long retired, he was still scoring goals at the highest level of the sport, purely because his body had been maintained with a level of relentless care that very few humans ever apply to anything. For English learners, I want you to borrow this word for your own journey. Relentless does not mean exhausting yourself. It means refusing to let comfort or boredom or a single bad day convince you to stop showing up. A relentless learner is not someone who studies 12 hours a day. A relentless learner is someone who studies a little every single day without fail for years. The compounding effect of relentless small effort is the secret behind every great achievement we have discussed in this podcast. Mr. Beast's 5 years of unwatched videos, Musk's 3 exploded rockets, Oprah's decades of daily broadcasts. And it is the secret behind your English too. Part 3, The Moral Story. The boy who ran when no one was watching. Before we go further into Ronaldo's journey, I want to share a story with you. Quiet story. A story about the kind of effort that nobody sees, and why that invisible effort matters more than anything visible ever could. Once, in a mountain village where the roads were steep and the winters were long, there lived a boy named Tomas. Tomas wanted, more than anything, to become a runner. Not just any runner. He wanted to run in the great races, the ones broadcast across the country, the ones where the winner's name was remembered for years. But Tomas had a problem. He was not naturally fast. The other boys in his village, the ones with longer legs and lighter frames, beat him in every race they ran together. They laughed, not unkindly, but with the easy confidence of those who win without trying. Tomas could have accepted this. He could have decided that running was simply not for him, that his body was built for something else, that the dream was not realistic. Instead, he began waking before dawn. While the village still slept, while the mountain air was so cold it burned his lungs, Tomas ran the steep road that climbed behind his house. He ran it slowly at first. He ran it badly. He fell more than once on the loose stones. Nobody saw him. There was no audience, no medal, no praise waiting for him at the top of that hill. Just the cold, the silence, and his own breathing. He did this every single morning for 6 years. When Tomas finally entered his first regional competition, the other runners did not recognize him as a threat. He looked the same, small frame, ordinary stride. But when the race began, something happened that no one expected. Tomas did not tire. While the others slowed in the final stretch, gasping, Tomas's legs, trained on 6 years of brutal mountain mornings, simply kept going. He won. Not because he was naturally the fastest, but because he had built, in private, in the cold, unseen hours of dawn, a body and a will that the visible competitors had never had to build. The moral of this story is simple, and it is one of the most important lessons in this entire podcast. The effort nobody sees is the effort that creates the result everybody sees. Greatness is rarely built in public. It is built quietly, repeatedly, in the hours when no one is watching and no one would know if you quit. Now let us take vocabulary from this story. The word brutal means extremely harsh, severe, or demanding, without softness or mercy. A brutal winter is an extremely harsh one. A brutal schedule is an extremely demanding one. For example, the training was brutal, but she pushed through every session, knowing the result would be worth it. Or, Ronaldo's brutal discipline around diet, sleep, and recovery is often cited by sports scientists as a major reason for his unusually long career at the top level. The word unseen means not seen, not noticed, hidden from view. Unseen effort is effort that nobody witnesses or praises. It is invisible labor. For example, behind every confident speech is hours of unseen practice in front of a mirror. Or, most of your English progress will be unseen. Quiet hours of listening, reading, and practicing that nobody applauds but that quietly build your fluency. And the word threshold means the point at which something begins to happen, or the boundary you must cross to move from one state into another. Pain threshold. Threshold of understanding. Threshold of fluency. For example, after months of consistent practice, she finally crossed the threshold from understanding individual words to understanding entire conversations. Or, there is a threshold in language learning where suddenly your brain stops translating and starts simply receiving meaning directly. Crossing that threshold takes time, but it is real and it is coming for you. Part 4. The language of discipline and routine. One of the most striking things about Cristiano Ronaldo's career is the consistency of his routine. He has spoken openly in countless interviews over the years about the specific rituals he maintains. Sleep schedules, recovery techniques, nutrition plans, training intensity, that have remained largely unchanged regardless of fame, wealth, or age. This consistency is not boring to him. It is the foundation that allows the extraordinary moments, the goals, the trophies, the records, to happen at all. Let me give you vocabulary today that will help you talk about discipline, routine, and consistency with real precision in English. The word regimen means a structured, planned course of action, particularly relating to diet, exercise, or health, that is followed strictly and regularly. A regimen is not casual. It is deliberate and systematic. For example, her morning regimen included 30 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of exercise, and 10 minutes of journaling, every single day without exception. Or, Ronaldo's training regimen is famously meticulous. Every element of his physical preparation is planned and tracked. For English learners, consider building a language regimen. Not a vague intention to study more. A specific, repeatable structure. 15 minutes of listening every morning. One new word reviewed 3 times throughout the day. One full conversation attempted every week. A regimen removes the need for motivation because you are not deciding whether to do it each day. You have already decided, and you simply follow the structure. The word meticulous means showing great attention to detail, very careful and precise. A meticulous person does not skip steps or cut corners. They notice the small things that others overlook. For example, he was meticulous about his preparation, checking every detail twice before the presentation began. Or, Ronaldo is famously meticulous about his body, tracking sleep, hydration, and recovery with the precision of a scientist. The word restraint means self-control, the ability to hold back from doing something you want to do, in service of a longer-term goal. Restraint is not weakness. It is one of the strongest qualities a person can develop. For example, it took enormous restraint for her not to check her phone during the 3 hours she had set aside to study. Or, athletes like Ronaldo show extraordinary restraint, turning down foods, late nights, and indulgences that would interfere with their performance for years and years at a time. For your English, restraint might mean not switching back to subtitles in your own language the moment a scene becomes difficult. It might mean staying in the uncomfortable, slightly too fast conversation a little longer instead of retreating to where it is easy. Restraint applied patiently builds capability. Part 5. 5 vocabulary words from the world of excellence. Let me give you 5 more vocabulary words connected to performance, excellence, and the relentless pursuit of mastery. All themes that Ronaldo's career embodies completely. The first word is longevity. Longevity means the length of time something or someone lasts or continues, particularly used to describe a long, sustained career or life. Longevity is rare in professional sport, where most careers fade within a decade. Ronaldo's longevity at the very top of world football, performing at an elite level for over 20 years, is almost unheard of. For example, the longevity of their friendship was remarkable. 40 years and they still spoke every week. Or, building longevity in your English skills means creating habits you can sustain for years, not just weeks of intense motivation followed by burnout. The second word is benchmark. A benchmark is a standard or point of reference against which things can be compared or measured. When something becomes the benchmark, it becomes the standard that others are judged against. For example, his debut novel became the benchmark against which all his later work was measured. Or, Ronaldo's goal-scoring records have become the benchmark that every young striker in the world is now measured against. The third word is rigorous. Rigorous means extremely thorough, exact, and demanding, characterized by strict standards and careful attention. A rigorous process leaves nothing to chance. For example, the rigorous testing process ensured that no faulty product ever reached customers. Or, Ronaldo's rigorous approach to his physical conditioning is often credited by sports scientists as the primary reason he could still compete at an elite level well past the age when most footballers retire. The fourth word is mentality. Mentality refers to a particular way of thinking, a characteristic attitude or approach to life and challenges. We often talk about a winning mentality, a growth mentality, or a fixed mentality. For example, she approached every setback with a growth mentality, seeing each failure as useful information rather than proof of inadequacy. Or, Ronaldo's mentality has been described by teammates and coaches as almost unmatched, a refusal to accept anything less than his absolute best, regardless of circumstances. For English learners, your mentality matters enormously. A learner with a fixed mentality believes their current level of English is a permanent reflection of their ability. A learner with a growth mentality understands that every mistake, every confusing sentence, every awkward conversation is simply information. Data that tells your brain what to work on next. The fifth word is apex. Apex means the highest point, the peak, the summit of achievement or development. We talk about someone reaching the apex of their career, or a species being an apex predator, at the very top of its environment. For example, winning the championship represented the apex of her athletic career. Or, Many consider Ronaldo's performances in his mid to late 20s to represent the apex of his footballing ability, though remarkably, he continued performing at an extraordinarily high level for many years afterward. You may feel far from any apex in your English right now. But every apex was once approached one ordinary, unremarkable day at a time. Part 6. 5 idioms from the world of sport and perseverance. Now let us move to our idioms for today. 5 expressions, deeply connected to the world of competition, performance, and persistence. The exact world Cristiano Ronaldo has lived in his entire adult life. The first idiom is raise the bar. This means to set a new, higher standard for performance or achievement, to push the level of expectation upward, often forcing others to improve in response. For example, her presentation raised the bar for the entire team. Everyone realized they needed to prepare more thoroughly from then on. Or, Ronaldo has spent his entire career raising the bar for what is physically and competitively possible in football, well into an age when his peers had long since retired. For English learners, raise the bar for yourself, gently but consistently. If you have been comfortable with simple conversations, challenge yourself with a slightly more complex one. If you have been reading children's stories, move to something a little more advanced. Raising the bar even slightly is how growth happens. The second idiom is go the distance. This means to continue all the way to the end of something difficult, to see a challenging task through to completion without giving up partway. For example, it was a long and difficult exam, but she went the distance and finished every question. Or, few athletes go the distance the way Ronaldo has, competing at an elite level for over 2 decades when most careers in his sport last half that long. The third idiom is hungry for success. This describes someone with an intense, driving desire to achieve and improve, someone whose ambition has not been satisfied by what they have already accomplished. This idiom uses the physical sensation of hunger to describe an emotional and motivational state. For example, even after winning the award, she remained hungry for success, immediately setting her sights on the next challenge. Or, despite already being one of the most decorated athletes in history, Ronaldo has often spoken about remaining hungry for success. For one more trophy, one more record, one more reason to keep training as hard as he did at 20. For English learners, stay hungry. The moment you feel completely satisfied with your current level is often the moment progress quietly stops. A small, healthy hunger for the next level keeps the engine running. The fourth idiom is in a league of your own. This means to be so exceptional, so far above the standard level of competition, that you cannot really be compared to others, you exist in a category by yourself. For example, her talent for languages put her in a league of her own. She had mastered 4 by the age of 20. Or, for long stretches of his career, commentators described Ronaldo as being in a league of his own, performing at a level that seemed to exist outside normal competition. The fifth idiom is keep your eye on the ball. This idiom comes directly from sport, literally meaning to watch the ball carefully so you do not miss it, but it is used constantly in everyday English to mean staying focused on your most important goal, without becoming distracted by less important things. For example, there were many distractions during the project, but she kept her eye on the ball and delivered exactly what was needed. Or, keep your eye on the ball with your English. There will be distractions, busy weeks, other priorities, days when motivation disappears entirely. Keep your eye on the ball. The goal has not moved, even when your attention drifts. Part 7. What Ronaldo teaches us about learning anything. Now I want to draw the lines directly between Cristiano Ronaldo's approach to football and your approach to English. Because I believe there are specific, practical lessons here that apply far beyond sport. The first lesson is, talent is the starting line, not the finish line. Ronaldo was talented as a child, yes. But so were dozens of other boys who trained alongside him at Sporting Lisbon and never became professional players at all. What separated him was not talent. It was what he did with it, every single day for 25 years. For English learners, this is liberating. You do not need a natural gift for languages to become fluent. You need a relentless, consistent relationship with the practice of learning. Talent might determine how fast you move at the very beginning, but discipline determines how far you eventually go. The second lesson is, maintain what you have built. Many athletes reach a peak and then, understandably, ease off. The body cannot maintain that intensity forever, and the achievements already secured feel like enough. Ronaldo famously did not ease off. He maintained an elite-level training regimen well past the age when his peers had retired, precisely because he understood that fluency in anything, in football, in language, in any skill, atrophies without continued use. The word atrophy means to waste away or weaken due to lack of use. Muscles atrophy without exercise. And language skills atrophy without practice. This is an important and slightly uncomfortable truth for English learners. Fluency is not a permanent destination you arrive at and then keep forever. It is a living skill that requires ongoing maintenance. For example, her French had atrophied significantly after a decade without practice, though it returned more quickly than she expected once she started again. Or, to prevent your English from atrophying, build small, sustainable habits, and protect them even after you feel you have reached a comfortable level. The third lesson is, compare yourself to your past self, not to others. Ronaldo has often spoken about his primary competition being himself, trying to break his own records, improve on his own previous seasons, become a better version of who he was the year before. For English learners, this lesson might be the most important one in this entire episode. Stop comparing your English to a native speaker's English. Stop comparing your progress to someone else's timeline. Compare your English today to your English 6 months ago. If you can understand more, express more, hesitate less than you could half a year ago, you are exactly where you should be. Progress is not a race against other people. It is a long conversation with your own past. The word progression means a gradual development or movement toward a more advanced state. A progression has direction and momentum, even when it is slow. For example, looking back at her notebooks from a year ago, she could clearly see her progression. Sentences that once felt impossible now came easily. Or trust the progression. Even on days when it feels invisible, your English is moving forward. Part 8. Review and close. We have covered a great deal of ground today, and I want to bring it all together before we close. Our vocabulary words for episode 14 were relentless, never stopping, never easing up, even after achieving a great deal. Brutal, extremely harsh, severe, or demanding without softness. Unseen, not noticed or witnessed. Hidden, invisible effort. threshold, the point at which something begins or the boundary you must cross. Regimen, a structured, deliberate course of action followed strictly and regularly. Meticulous, showing great attention to detail, very careful and precise. Restraint, self-control, holding back from something in service of a longer goal. Longevity, the length of time something or someone lasts or continues. Benchmark, a standard or point of reference against which things are measured. Rigorous, extremely thorough, exact, and demanding. Mentality, a particular way of thinking or characteristic approach to challenges. Apex, the highest point, peak, or summit of achievement. Atrophy, to waste away or weaken due to lack of use. Progression, a gradual development or movement toward a more advanced state. Our idioms for today were: raise the bar, to set a new, higher standard for performance or achievement. Go the distance, to continue all the way to the end of something difficult. Hungry for success, having an intense, driving desire to achieve and improve. In a league of your own, to be so exceptional that you cannot really be compared to others. Keep your eye on the ball, to stay focused on your most important goal without distraction. 14 vocabulary words. 5 idioms. 19 new tools for your English today. Before I let you go, I want to leave you with an image. Somewhere right now, in a quiet corner of the world, a young footballer is running up a hill before dawn, with nobody watching. And somewhere right now, perhaps exactly where you are sitting, a person learning English is listening to a podcast on their morning commute, repeating a new word under their breath, building something that no one around them can fully see. Both of you are doing the same thing. You are putting in unseen effort, trusting that it accumulates into something real, even on the days when it feels like nothing is happening at all. Cristiano Ronaldo was once a small, poor boy with an island accent that made the mainland boys laugh. He did not let that be the end of his story. He trained. He maintained. He compared himself only to who he had been the season before. And over 25 relentless years, he became one of the greatest the world has ever seen. Your English is being built the same way. Quietly. Consistently. One unseen morning at a time. Keep your eye on the ball. Stay hungry. Go the distance. And I will see you in episode 15. This has been SERA English. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being here with me today.